Nazila Maroufian has been living in constant fear for over a week. The exiled Iranian journalist is glued to her phone, waiting for news from her family who are still in Saqqez in western Iran.
J'ai essayé plusieurs fois, mais ça marche plus. Même avec, ils ont même coupé les lignes de téléphonique fixes et mobiles. J'ai envoyé des messages, plein de messages pour mon frère. J'ai dit que mon corps, je t'aime beaucoup. T'es où? S'il te plaît, réponds-moi.
For several days now, Nazila has been getting videos of protesters being killed.
C'est un monstre.
Because Iran has been rocked by unprecedented waves of protest since the end of December. Thousands of Iranians throughout the country are calling for an end to the rule of the dictatorship of the mullahs who've been in power for 46 years. They're attacking all the symbols of the Islamic Republic, setting fire to mosques and public buildings. The Iranian regime has cut off access to the internet and is using lethal force to suppress the revolt under cover of the digital blackout.
They're shooting us!
The Revolutionary Guards, or Guardians of the Revolution, were firing at protesters with live ammunition. Official reports from the regime suggest that over 3,000 people were killed in just 2 weeks. But who are these men who are willing to massacre their own people to stay in power? Created at the inception of the Islamic Republic in 1979, the paramilitary organization is the armed wing of the regime and its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Its original mission was to relentlessly hunt down the enemies of the regime. But over the years, the power of the Revolutionary Guards in Iran has become almost absolute. They have their own ground forces, Navy and Air Force. With their 125,000 men, they have supplanted the regular army and rule supreme over the country. Their militia represses the people who refuse to submit to Islamist extremism. But the Guards are not just a military force. They've taken control of entire sectors of the economy.
هم ارتش، هم سازمان امنیت، هم بنگاه اقتصادی، هم مافیا تبدیل شده به یک هیولای منحصر به فرد توی دنیا.
Drawing on exclusive testimony from former members of the Revolutionary Guard and from Mossad agents, we reveal how they are seizing the country's wealth.
Almost 100% from the money from the oil market going to the budget of the Revolutionary Guards. They need billions of dollars.
They use this war chest to finance their fight against their sworn enemies, America and especially Israel. For years, they've been exporting their struggle throughout the Middle East. They arm and finance Hezbollah, the Houthis and Hamas. Within the country, their power is increasingly contested. Exceptionally, just a few days before the protests began, we were able to film secretly with young opponents of the regime. In recent weeks, the revolt has spread to every social class, every city and the countryside. Anger that could topple a regime that has been in power for 46 years. We went to Washington, to Dusseldorf, to Tel Aviv to investigate the Revolutionary Guards. Tehran, with its 9 million inhabitants, is the capital of one of the most closed dictatorships on the planet, the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's impossible for Western journalists to visit. These images were filmed by a local team a few weeks before the uprising that shook the country. Filming was authorized by the regime, but it was very tightly controlled. This is what the authorities want to show the world. This is the Great Friday Prayer, an unchanging ritual. As every week, thousands of supporters of the Islamic Republic have gathered at this mosque. The men are inside. Outside, the women, fully veiled, are following the ceremony on screens. This prayer is fuel for the regime's propaganda. The service is broadcast live on state television. Imam Ali Akbari stands at the podium holding a rifle. His sermon covers all the obsessions of the Islamic Republic, including compulsory wearing of the veil. The country's disastrous economic situation also features in the sermon. Then, as at each of his prayers, the Imam attacks Iran's sworn enemy. It's 2 years since the 7th of October attack that left 1,200 people dead in Israel. To celebrate the anniversary of the massacre, the regime organized a large demonstration in the streets of Tehran.
این جمعیت این صدا نیست از تهران پایتخت ایران اسلامی و مشت‌های گره کرده مرگ بر اسرائیل.
Supporters of the regime proudly trample on Israeli and American flags. Some agree to answer our questions and faithfully recite the official propaganda.
فکر می‌کنیم که چه پیامی داره به کشورهای غربی میرسه؟
این پیام مردم حماس، غزه و فلسطین پیامش اینه که واقعا باید ترامپ و نتانیاهو از تاریخ روزگار محو بشن.
به دشمنان جهان اسلام پیاممون رو ابلاغ میکنیم که ما سرسختانه پشت نظاممون ایستادیم و از رهبر معظم انقلاب با تمام توان حمایت میکنیم.
The revolution this young man refers to is the revolution of 1979. The starting point of Iran's recent history. At the time, the country was an authoritarian monarchy supported by the United States and ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He was overthrown by a cleric, Ayatollah Khomeini, who founded the Islamic Republic of Iran. To maintain his power and hunt down his enemies, he created a parallel army made up of devout young men, the Revolutionary Guards, or Guardians of the Revolution.
Une milice dévouée jusqu'à la mort à l'imam, recrutée parmi les Moustazafines, les opprimés de l'Iran, ferveur et obéissance aveugle.
Je suis devenu gardien de la Révolution pour défendre la religion et servir l'islam.
But over almost 50 years, the Revolutionary Guards have become a veritable state within a state. To understand how they managed to bring the country under their control, we travelled to Düsseldorf in Germany. There we met with Mohammed Hossein Tokhaman, a senior member of the Islamist organization.
من در 17 سالگی در واقع بعد از اینکه کنکور دانشگاه رو انجام دادم و رتبه بالایی در سطح کشور آوردم، وارد در واقع پروسه کاری به دلیل بورسیه سپاه پاسداران شدم.
Mohammed Hossein Tokhaman began his training in the Revolutionary Guard volunteer militia, the Basij. It has nearly 2 million members, many of whom are very young.
ببینید اکثر کسایی که وارد سازمان بسیج مردمی میشن از اقشار پایین جامعه هستن، یعنی کسایی که در زندگی شخصیشون دارای فقر و عدم توان هستن. خب حکومت میتونه بسیار زیاد برای اینا تبلیغات بکنه و اینا رو تأمین بکنه.
These young men are totally indoctrinated. They go out on patrols everywhere, keeping the population under surveillance.
این افراد تا جایی جلو میرن که حتی حاضرن هموطنهای خودشون و همسایگان خودشون رو در واقع به این سیستم ایدئولوژیکی که براشون تعریف شده بفروشن.
The militias are now at the forefront of the massacres of demonstrators. Mohammed Hossein Tokhaman then rose through the ranks and joined an elite unit. He became one of the close protection detail for the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei.
در رابطه با روبرو شدن با ایشون که باید گفت طبیعتاً هر روز ما ایشون میدیدیم، چون در قسمتی که ایشون با دولت کار میکنه تصمیمات اصلی دولت رو شخص آیت الله خامنه‌ای میگیره، تصمیمات نهادهای اطلاعاتی کشور رو هم به همین شکل.
The 86-year-old cleric promotes an ultra-fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. On his official channels, he often appears in front of fully veiled female supporters.
میگن اگر چنانچه زن حجاب داشته باشه و این محدودیت‌ها رو برای خودش معین بکنه از پیشرفت باز میمانه. جمهوری اسلامی این منطق غلط رو باطل کرد، زیر پا له کرد.
Ali Khamenei has ruled the country with an iron hand for 36 years.
ببینید شخصیت رهبر ایران خیلی متفاوته. وقتی شما در زندگی خانوادگی ایشون نگاه میکنی میبینی که یک پدر کاملا ساده است. وقتی در شخصیت دیکتاتور و به عنوان رهبر ایران شروع به کار میکنه میتونه تا با تمام توان جلوی مردمش بیسته، میتونه مردمش رو بکشه.
The Iranian people no longer want this brutal leader. According to a poll conducted in August 2025 by an independent institute based in the Netherlands, 70% of Iranians now want an end to religious dictatorship. In Tehran, a young couple opposed to the regime agreed to tell us about their daily lives. They are risking their lives by speaking out. They could be accused of espionage and imprisoned. These images were filmed a few days before the protests began. Since the protests started, we've had no news from them because of the internet blackout.
عشق پوسترم، من چیزای گنده بزنم و فکر کنم مردم باورشون میشه این چیزا. هرچی گنده تر بهتر.
Taraneh and Amin are 22 and 24 years old. To show her opposition to the religious dictatorship, Taraneh has decided to stop wearing the veil, even though it's compulsory under Islamic law.
مثلا یه شالی همچه دور گردنم بود ولی جدیدن دیگه اونم نمیندازم. من تقریبا از یه 2-3 سال پیش، یعنی همزمان با انقلاب مهسا، کم کم کلا دیگه حجابو گذاشتم کنار.
Mahsa Amini was the name of a young woman who was beaten to death by the morality police in 2022 because she was not wearing her veil properly. The murder of this 22-year-old student sparked massive protests across the country. Protesters tore off their headscarves in the street and attacked symbols of the regime. Even at that time, the protest movement was brutally suppressed. Hundreds of women were imprisoned. Some were raped or tortured in prison. But Mahsa Amini's death gave thousands of Iranian women the courage to show their opposition to the religious authorities.
تعداد زنایی که می‌بینم اطرافم حجاب ندارن نسبت به چند سال گذشته خیلی زیاد شده، مخصوصا توی همسن و سال خودم. ولی حتی تو خانواده‌های سنتی‌تر و خانمایی که مثلا سمبالاترن توی اونا هم می‌بینم که خیلی کمتر حجاب دارن.
خواهر خود منم به دخترش گیر نمیده سر حجاب.
To hold on to power, the regime has had to give ground a little on the issue of the veil.
Les filles continuent à vivre, pour la plupart, notamment les jeunes, sans foulard, à prendre le métro tête nue, à s'asseoir aux terrasses des cafés sans voile obligatoire, à marcher dans la rue sans voile, même si régulièrement il y a encore des tentatives de répression du système.
The Revolutionary Guards regularly try to regain control by sending in the morality police. To set an example, they round up women who reveal too much of their hair. That happened to Taraneh last year.
من و دوستم داشتیم توی کوچه واسه خودمون قدم می‌زدیم، خیلی خوشحال از فضای بهاری و اینا، و یهو ماشین گشت از روبرو اومد، ما دو تایی کلا قفل کردیم. اینجوری اومدن با یه خیلی حالت وحشتناکی ما انداختن تو گشت و 2 ساعت با تو این گشت ما چرخیدیم توی ونه که یه تعداد آدم دیگه هم پیدا کنن بذارن تو ون که ون پرشه، تعهد گرفتن و ولمون کردن دیگه. ولی خب خیلی تجربه تحقیر برانگیزی بود.
Despite this heavy-handed reminder of the law, Taraneh continues to walk around bareheaded, living an apparently almost normal life for a young person.
آره میگیریم. اجازهشو نداریم ولی میگیریم.
فعلا خط قرمز بوسیدن است.
آره.
اینو خیلی کم میشه.
It's impossible to kiss in public, but this unmarried couple smoke openly in the street. And lovers can sit together at this cafe in central Tehran. There's no alcohol on the menu, but apart from that, you could think you were in a European capital.
آره فکر کنم جایی که آدما با هر یعنی کافه اولین جاهاییه که آدم با هر عقیده و هر انتخابی میتونن بیان کنار هم باشن هم وقتی کنار هم میبینه آدم رو یکی اجاب داره یکی نداره مثلا خودش یه نموده.
It's a space they can feel free, where Taraneh and Amin no longer hesitate to openly criticize the supreme leader of the revolution, Ali Khamenei. Like many young Iranians, Taraneh and Amin try to carve out spaces of freedom for themselves. Tonight, the couple are going to a party at a friend's house. Little tops and silk blouses have replaced traditional outfits in Taraneh's wardrobe.
من خودم تا 1-2 سال پیش خیلی متوجهش نبودم، ولی از وقتی که واقعا دیگه شال سرم نمی‌کنم یا اون قضیه کوتاهی بلند لباس واسم مسئله نیست، خیلی بیشتر احساس اینو دارم که خودمم و راحت‌ترم و دیگه کاراکتر توی خونم خیلی با اون چیزی که بیرونم فرق نمی‌کنه و این خب به نظرم خیلی مهمه.
عالی شدی.
مطمئن؟
آره. من چطورم؟
خوبی. اینا. عالی.
Before leaving for the party, the couple have a drink of smuggled alcohol.
یه شات واسه بریزم؟
آره بریز بخوریم و بریم.
میدونی هم داشتم به چی فکر میکردم؟
به چی؟
چون فکر میکردم که اگه همین دوره همی و مهمونی و رفت آمده نبود اولا دیگه چی واسه اون باقی نمید. یعنی
The party is in a residential district of Tehran.
کاش که تو مدرسه میگرفتیم.
Taraneh and Armin order a taxi using an app for a night out like any European partygoers, but with an added worry.
همسایه چیزی شکایت بکنه شاکی باشه پلیس به خاطر اون میاد.
With a quarter of the population still in favor of the government, young people are afraid of being reported.
پلیس که همیشه هست. تو هر جای شهر در هر کاری که در حال انجام هر کاری باشه یه ترسی وجود داره که پلیس بیاد و بخواد بهت گیر بده. نه برای مهمونی
خیلی وقت دیگه گیر نمیاد. برچیده شده.
As with the veil, the Islamist regime has relaxed the rules on gathering somewhat in an attempt to win young people over. That night, the 30 or so friends were able to dance to American rock music until the early hours of the morning without being disturbed. The mullah's regime is progressively losing its grip on the people of Iran. Even their so-called glorious deeds no longer interest many people. The Revolutionary Guards allowed us to film in a place they're very proud of, the former US Embassy, now converted into a museum of espionage. This is a place that promotes hatred of America. But it no longer thrills the crowds. The rooms are desperately empty. There are no Iranians. We came across only a few Japanese tourists who seemed to be there by mistake. While the regime likes to demonize its enemies, above all, it loves to display its military power. We headed for the National Aerospace Park, about 20 kilometers from Tehran. The official guide agreed to show us around this museum dedicated to armaments.
قسمت اول که اینجا هست موشکی زمین به زمین بعد وارد پهپادا خواهیم شد. یک کشور اروپایی پیدا می‌کنیم 5 برابر.
The Islamic Republic's impressive military arsenal is on display here. There are drones, but mainly cruise missiles and ballistic missiles.
خطای وردی به نقطه زد. این موشک استراتژیک ماست، موشک خرمشهر که بردش 2000 کیلومتر. سرجنگی سنگینی داره، 2 تن وزنشه. سنگین‌ترین سرجنگی تو این مجموعه ما جانمایی کردیم 300 مشروع مرگ و 600 مشروع اثرگذاری.
This show of force is a message to the regime's enemies. Some of these missiles have recently struck Israel.
موشک‌های خیبرشکن 2 هم ساخته شده و تو عملیات وعده صادق 2 و 3 گفتن استفاده شده. 6 دقیقه هر نقطه از رژیم صهیونیستی رو تونستن مورد حساب.
The 12-day war. 12 days during which the conflict between Iran and Israel, which had long been simmering, escalated into open warfare. At 3 o'clock on the first morning, Tehran was shaken by a series of explosions. It was the beginning of Operation Rising Lion.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
A few hours earlier at the Nevatim military base in southern Israel, nearly 200 aircraft had taken off, including F-16 and F-15 fighter jets. The scale of the raid was unprecedented.
Il y avait aussi des avions radars pour justement la détection et la protection du raid et forcément des avions de ravitaillement puisqu'on a une distance qui est quand même très conséquente de plus de 1500 km entre Israël et l'Iran. Donc c'est vraiment un raid extrêmement massif comme on n'en avait pas vu en fait au XXIe siècle.
This is one of the most impressive military operations in modern times.
With formidable efficiency, the IDF neutralized Iran's air defense systems.
Ils ont détruit des S-400 russes qui font partie des meilleures batteries antiaériennes, ce qui leur a permis de conquérir totalement le ciel iranien.
The Air Force operated in the Iranian sky like it was a stroll in the park.
Caught off guard, Iran sent its kamikaze drones into the sky. But they were immediately destroyed by Israeli combat helicopters. Cornered, the leaders of the Revolutionary Guard Air Force then made a serious mistake. They decided to meet to organize a counterattack. The trap set by the IDF was closing in on them.
They sent encrypted false messages to these commanders of the Iranian IRGC, and they brought them together to the same bunker. There were agents also near the locations in order to ensure that indeed they are there. And then the Israeli Air Force bombed the place.
Ils visent ce qu'on appelle le C2, c'est-à-dire le système de commandement. Le fait de cibler d'un coup le commandement, ça vous permet de créer un effet de surprise et ça suscite par ailleurs aussi évidemment l'effroi.
In retaliation, the Iranian regime fired more than 500 ballistic missiles at Israel.
Allahu Akbar!
Around 50 of them reached the heart of Tel Aviv. Israel retaliated in turn. It attacked all the symbols of the Islamic Republic, including the state television station Irib News. Leading figures from the regime were simply taken out in their Tehran homes.
On voyait des grandes tours égratignées juste en leur sommet, où se trouvaient des appartements ultra luxueux, donc détenus par ces grands pontes du régime.
During the 12 days of war, around 30 high-ranking officials were assassinated. Among them were Hossein Zalami, the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Amir Ali Aghizadeh, the commander of its air force, Mohammad Bagheri, the chief of staff of the armed forces. But Israel's main aim in Operation Rising Lion was to strike at the heart of the Iranian system, its closely guarded nuclear program. Several of the program's top scientists were assassinated, including the head, Feridun Abbasi.
So the Israeli assassinations of between 10 to 15 nuclear scientists during the war was certainly an impressive accomplishment, mainly due to the fact that those were not ordinary nuclear scientists. They were actually playing a major role concerning the weaponization part of Iran's nuclear program.
The research center in Isfahan was bombed. But the Israeli Air Force was unable to reach one of the country's most strategic uranium enrichment sites, the Fordo site, hidden in the mountains 200 kilometers south of Tehran.
Les Israéliens, ça fait longtemps qu'ils veulent cibler les installations nucléaires iraniennes et donc les Iraniens ont eu le temps de durcir leurs installations, c'est-à-dire de les protéger, donc de les enterrer.
They put the Fordo enrichment plant 40, 50 meters deep inside the ground, even in some places 90 meters. Now, the Israeli Air Force doesn't have these monstrous bombs. Even if we had the bomb, we don't have the bombers.
But Israel was then able to count on very valuable assistance from the skies.
The Americans and Trump said, We will do it, we will do it. And that's the Americans, the bombers came with these huge bombs and GBU bombs.
On June the 22nd, 2025, 12 penetrating bombs, each weighing 13 tons, were dropped on the Fordo site by the United States.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Thank you.
Donald Trump congratulated himself. But despite the huge craters visible in these satellite images, the truth was slightly different.
Iran's nuclear program was certainly degraded and delayed. They still have the technical capabilities and the technology, and they still have about 450 kilograms of enriched uranium to 60%. So from the technical point of view, they can still do that, but it's going probably to be a very risky decision for them if they don't want to trigger another round of Israeli or even US strike.
But how did Israel prepare for this large-scale operation? The military offensive would never have been possible without an infiltration campaign by the Israeli secret services, Mossad.
It was built over years, a layer upon layer.
For a decade, the Israeli secret services have been deeply penetrating Iran. They've recruited dozens of agents capable of operating in complete secrecy.
The Mossad began working on a program to recruit foreigners who are familiar with Iran. So mostly they have to be Iranians, but not necessarily. They have to speak the language, Farsi. They have to know the culture. It's called foreign flag recruitment.
Mossad relies on a number of key levers to attract recruits.
La matrice pour le renseignement, c'est la matrice qu'on appelle MICE. Donc money, c'est-à-dire acheter les gens. Idéologie, donc ça c'est plutôt du coup la haine du régime. La coercition, donc récupérer des infos sur est-ce qu'un tel est homosexuel, est-ce qu'un tel a une liaison, et ensuite faire du chantage envers les gens. Et ensuite l'ego, c'est-à-dire la volonté, du coup, enfin le sentiment d'avoir une action décisive sur l'histoire.
These undercover agents are said to have helped to transport ammunition and remote-controlled missile launchers into Iran via networks of smugglers.
The easiest way is to smuggle it through the borders. Smuggling in Iran is a way of life. There is human traffic. You smuggle women, you smuggle drugs, you smuggle goods, electronic goods, and you smuggle weapons.
Some of the components transported were also used to assemble kamikaze drones in clandestine workshops. Mossad agents then used them to destroy military targets. The 12-day war left a total of nearly 1,000 dead in Iran. In Tehran, a few days after the end of the fighting, the Revolutionary Guards who had been killed were elevated to the rank of martyrs. Thousands of supporters of the Islamic Republic came to pay their respects as their coffins passed. Even though the guards had been decimated, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei proclaimed victory.
با اون همه هیاهو، با اون همه ادعا، رژیم صهیونی در زیر ضربات جمهوری اسلامی تقریباً از پا درآمد و له شد.
The authorities were trying to save face, as over the years, the regime has built its image as being the ultimate bulwark against Israel. Anti-Israeli propaganda is omnipresent in Tehran. This clock displays a countdown to the destruction of the State of Israel, promised within 25 years. It's broadcast all day long on state television, as in this animated clip. Lego-like figures caricature Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump with a hamburger in his hand.
Le régime s'est targué d'avoir remporté la victoire. Il s'est enfermé dans une rhétorique de propagande, de victoire, de posters, de grandes fresques au nom des nouveaux martyrs de l'Iran d'aujourd'hui à travers les rues de la capitale Téhéran. Mais la réalité est tout autre. Et ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, les Iraniens ne sont plus dupes de cette propagande.
Iranians are not really interested in the enemy identified by the regime. They have a much more practical problem: their purchasing power. As illustrated by the young couple Taraneh and Amin, who have come to shop in the financial heart of the capital, the bazaar. Pomegranates are a staple of Iranian cuisine. But the prices are exorbitant nowadays. International sanctions and the misappropriation of wealth by the guards have ruined the economy. There has been over 50% inflation in 1 year, so the young couple are having to cut back on everything. That's €7. With an average wage of €170 per month, even basic necessities have become unaffordable. Milk has gone up 50% in 2 months. Bread, the staple food for Iranians on low incomes, has tripled in price in 1 year. The young couple go to a wealthy district of Tehran to have lunch with Taraneh's mother. There's an American fridge, air fryer, and espresso machine. This is an upper-class family. But the fridge is almost empty here too. Amin doesn't hesitate to help in the kitchen. Here, the rigid patriarchal society seems far away. BBC Persian is on in the living room. Taraneh's mother also gets her news from the internet. The authorities censor social media, so many Iranians use VPNs. The Revolutionary Guards control the media and telecommunications. But they also have a stranglehold on almost every other economic sector in the country. So how did they become a veritable state within a state? In a residential suburb of Washington, there's a man who has known the organization's secrets since its inception. Mohsen Zazigara fled Iran after being threatened by the Revolutionary Guards.
هم ارتش، هم سازمان امنیت، هم بنگاه اقتصادی، هم مافیا تبدیل شده به یک هیولای منحصر به فرد توی دنیا.
Mohsen Zazigara created this monster more than 50 years ago. In the late 1970s, the young student was a disciple of Ayatollah Khamenei, the founder of the Islamic Republic.
I'm here.
Mohsen Zazigara witnessed the gradual transformation of the Islamist militia.
دینی بودن فقط مثل یه ورق نازک خامه روی کیک میمونه که شما رو این بزنین زیرش پر از کرم و فساده، پر از کثافته. در واقع رژیم فعلی ایران یک حکومت دزد سالار مافیاییه که در اونجا در رأسش هم دیکتاتوری قرار داره که گادفادره، پدرخوانده است که فقط این مافیاها رو با هم هماهنگ میکنه.
The Revolutionary Guards have swapped their uniforms for smart suits and taken control of all the country's strategic businesses. In Tel Aviv, Israel, there's a man who has investigated their economic empire. Udi Levy is a former Mossad commander.
My name is Udi Levy. I was in charge inside the Mossad in all the economical warfare against Iran for 15 years. Along the year, the Iranian, very clever, they developed two kinds of economy. The regular economy for the common people and totally different economy for the Revolutionary Guard. The meaning was that the Revolutionary Guard took control of all the main sources of the Iranian.
To control the economy, these new oligarchs created several holding companies, such as the Khatam al-Anbiya conglomerate, which is worth more than $10 billion.
Khatam al-Anbiya Reconstruction Headquarters has moved towards super projects which were hitherto undertaken by foreign companies.
Khatam al-Anbiya is one of the main institute for real estate building. They are doing most of the huge infrastructure.
بیشتر کانترکتورن اونایی که به خاتم الانبیا وصلن و پروژه های بزرگ کشور رو گرفتن، از پروژه های سدسازی و راهسازی و ساختمانسازی تا پروژه های نفتی و غیره.
Their main resource is oil. Iran has the fifth largest reserves in the world, a source of considerable wealth.
Almost 100% from the money from the oil market going to the budget of the Revolutionary Guards. This is one of the main sources that they have. To finance all their activity, they need billions of dollars.
The oil, subject to international sanctions, is mainly sold to China. And the Iranians have set up a sophisticated system to circumvent the embargo. Every day, 2 million barrels of oil leave the Iranian coast aboard ships that disappear from maritime radar by cutting off their geolocation beacons.
So, for example, when they take an Iranian tanker, oil tanker, it doesn't leave directly to China. It goes, for example, to Malaysia or Indonesia, where the oil is transferred on another vessel with a different flag, and then from Malaysia and Indonesia it goes to China.
به هیچ کس هم جواب نمیده که اصلا چقدر نفت به چه قیمتی فروخت و بعدم پولش رو به چه مصرفی رسوند.
This trafficking allows them to rake in colossal profits, estimated at nearly $50 billion a year. And to launder this money, the Revolutionary Guards have woven a global network of shell companies in Turkey, China, and the United Arab Emirates.
When you are under sanction, immediately your name entering to the blacklist, that the meaning that the banking cannot working with you, the banking cannot transferring money, companies, other companies cannot work. So if you want to bypass, you have to build shell company. The money changer open cover company in China or in Dubai or in Hong Kong.
For denouncing this mafia-like system, Mohsen Sazegara was imprisoned 5 times in Tehran's Evin prison by the Revolutionary Guards, the organization he himself created.
I lost after 2 long hunger strikes. Totally, it took about 79 days. When I was released, I was only 42 kilograms. I lost about 35 kilograms of my weight.
Mohsen Sazegara was eventually released. He fled Iran and continues to oppose the Islamic Republic from the United States. But his life remains under threat.
The FBI has warned me, the intelligence of Revolutionary Guard is planning to kill you. Informed that they want to kill me. I heard that Khamenei personally has ordered that shut down and close the mouth of this guy outside Iran.
Because the Revolutionary Guards make assassination attempts on their opponents well beyond Iran's borders.
Vidal Cuadra se recupera de un disparo en la cara que recibió cerca de su casa en Madrid. La policía cree que es un trabajo de sicarios y se está investigando una posible conexión iraní.
The feds charged 1 Iranian and 2 Canadian nationals for plotting the murders of 2 Maryland residents, one of whom had defected from Iran.
Un couple d'origine iranienne s'apprêtait à faire sauter une bombe lors d'un rassemblement d'un parti d'opposition iranien samedi dernier à Villepinte, près de Paris.
Matthew Levitt, a former US counter-terrorism official based in Washington, has meticulously documented these clandestine operations.
I created a map, which we update on a regular basis, of Iranian external operations. The map shows very clearly that Iran has been using these tactics, specifically assassination, kidnapping, and violent intimidation all over the world since, weeks into the revolution.
This phenomenon has accelerated significantly in recent times. Matthew Levitt has documented at least 88 clandestine operations carried out by the Guardians abroad over the past 5 years, including 11 in France.
IRGC has a mission to address those at home or abroad that present threats to the revolution. So Israelis, Jews that support Israel or speak out against Iran, and of course, Iranian dissidents.
هر کدومتون که یک روز هم کار رسانه‌ای علیه این نظام کرده باشین همتون خواهین خورد.
An Iranian dissident has agreed to tell us about the persecution he's suffering. For security reasons, it's impossible to meet him in person.
If you meet me, you may be followed by some people. So this is the point, that from you or through you, they can reach me.
Siamak Tadayon Tamazbi is a journalist and opponent of the Islamic Republic. For the past 2 years, he's been living in hiding in the Netherlands, under the protection of the Dutch security services.
I'm not in the same place every day. It's a solitary, actually, a very limited version of life. There is no social life and or communication with the people.
Siamak lives under high security because he has narrowly escaped death. In June 2024, on his surveillance cameras, he saw 2 men lurking around his flat in the middle of the night.
They were wearing the masks, and one of them was carrying a big hammer. They were, trying to prepare to come inside. I just pushed the panic button to alarm to the police. And fortunately, they were very fast.
The Dutch police arrested the two men and found handguns on them. But their profiles surprised the investigators because they were not Iranian. One of them, Mares Ayari, is a Franco-Tunisian drug trafficker. He was also wanted for an assassination attempt in Madrid against a politician critical of the Islamic Republic. So, for Siamak, there was no doubt about it. He had been sent by the Iranian regime.
They hired the mafia that, they just pay and they don't want anything to know about that. They just want a picture from the person who get killed. And the rest, they are not involved. Nobody can prove it.
Assassins in the pay of the mullahs. The Revolutionary Guards rely on organized crime, such as the Hells Angels motorcycle gang in Canada, or drug traffickers in Europe.
For these organizations, this is business. If the money is good, and if they have the capabilities, they'll seriously consider the job. And for Iran, that's useful because those are people who presumably have some skills.
This theory is confirmed by the Dutch intelligence services in their 2024 annual report. The terror of the Revolutionary Guards exported all over the world strikes mainly within Iran. The recent crackdown on protests claimed at least 3,500 victims over a period of only 2 weeks.